He was watching. Again, that damn cold, assessing stare that made my insides freeze. It was only then that I realized I had noticed him before. My strength had always been my instincts. Journalism taught me to see what others don't. The way someone averts their gaze before answering, the subtle tightening of lips when they lie, small details that scream louder than words. My weakness had always been fear. I grew up hearing my stepfather call me stupid, useless. I learned early on to be wary, to always expect the worst. At 15, I ran away from home. I learned to survive on my own, and that night at the Skyline Lounge, my instincts were screaming. I had been seeing Ryan for a few weeks. Funny, charming, maybe a little too obsessed with investments, but overall, a nice guy. The Skyline was one of those fancy rooftop bars with overpriced drinks and a spectacular view of Chicago. The kind of place where people dress up as something they're not. And that's when I saw him, the bartender. Ryan was saying something, but I couldn't focus. My eyes were locked on the bartender. Tall, good-looking, but in an artificial way. His hair was meticulously combed, his shirt without a single crease. Everything about him seemed calculated, as if every movement had been rehearsed in front of a mirror. "Are you two celebrating something?" he asked, pouring water into our glasses. "Just a regular night," I answered, not thinking much of it. "First round's on me, then." I smiled politely, but something about the way he said it unsettled me. It wasn't just a cheap flirt. It was deliberate. Ryan lifted his glass, excited. I just drank, but the problem came later. He kept watching. Even when Ryan talked, his eyes were on me, a cold, calculating gaze. It wasn't desire. It wasn't interest. It was evaluation. "Do you know him?" Ryan asked quietly, noticing my discomfort. "No, but he acts like he knows me." Ryan shot a quick glance at the bar. The bartender pretended to clean a glass but was listening. "Maybe he thinks he's seen you before. Maybe. Or maybe he was a damn predator waiting to strike." We switched tables, trying to create some distance, but the drinks for the next round were delivered by him. "Didn't want you to wait too long," he said, sliding the glass toward my hand. His fingers brushed against mine, too slow. I didn't respond. He smiled. Not a friendly smile, something possessive, as if he knew a secret I didn't. Ryan tensed beside me. That was creepy as hell. "Let's just finish and leave." But I didn't touch my drink again. Ryan didn't know about my childhood trauma, but in that moment, my anxiety hit hard. I was scared, really scared. Every time I glanced at the bar, he was already looking back, a small smile on his lips, as if he was enjoying himself, as if he was playing a game only he knew the rules to. When we left, the city's humidity felt suffocating. The noise of the crowded streets was a relief, something normal amidst the unease of that night. Ryan called an Uber. We waited in front of a convenience store, the streetlights casting a yellow glow on the sidewalk, and that's when I saw it. In the reflection of the store window, him, a still silhouette, less than a block away, following us. My fingers gripped Ryan's arm. "We're not alone." "What?" I tilted my head slightly, motioning toward the glass. Ryan adjusted his watch, stealing a glance. "Son of a bitch." "Let's go inside now." We didn't run, but we walked too fast to be casual. The store's air conditioning was freezing, but my body was still burning with adrenaline. Ryan pretended to browse the fridge while I watched from the candy aisle. 1 minute. 2. "He's gone," Ryan murmured. But I wasn't convinced, and I was right. When we stepped outside, he was there. Closer now, standing still, pretending to look at his phone, but he wasn't typing. He wasn't scrolling. He was just waiting. "Ryan? I know." This time, we didn't fake composure. We slipped into the crowd, blending with the people. The Uber pulled up and we got in too fast. I didn't look out the window. I didn't want to see if he was still there. That night, we locked every door, checked every window, but I knew it wasn't over. And the next morning, my phone proved it. Unknown number. "Why did you leave so early?" My stomach twisted. My fingers went cold. I opened the conversation. No previous messages, no name. "How did he get my number?" I blocked it immediately, but I spent the entire day watching the window. That night, I slept with a knife under my pillow. I never went back to the Skyline Lounge. I never saw that bartender again. But what haunts me to this day is the way he smiled. as if he knew this wasn't the end, as if he was waiting for the next time. Since that day, I've been in therapy to control the trauma that has only grown darker and more terrifying in my already troubled mind. Now, every time I step into a bar, I check who's serving, and when a waiter or bartender stares at me for too long, I leave. Because sometimes the danger isn't in the drink, it's in who serves it. The dry air of that Phoenix night carried a strange chill, one of those sharp winds that seemed to carry something wrong in the air. I've always been lonely and anxious. My father, if I can even call him that, left when I was 3. I barely remember him. My mother never paid attention to me. I was always emotionally dependent and afraid of everything. I met Marlon when I was 14. He's been my safe harbor ever since. In 2023, we were leaving the Sundown Steakhouse, a small restaurant with dim lighting, the scent of grilled meat, and expensive wine. Our schedules were a mess. I worked hospital shifts, he managed his startup, so those dinners were rare and precious. The night felt light, until I saw it. The white van. It was parked next to our car. Too close, the old kind with dirt-streaked metal and no windows in the back. The engine was running, but there was no one in the driver's seat. My stomach twisted. Was that here before? I asked, feeling the weight of unease crawling under my skin. Marlon looked, frowned. I don't know. Someone parked like an asshole. Maybe that was all it was, some clueless person taking up too much space, but something wasn't right, and then it happened. The van's side door slid open, not with a slam, not in a rush, slowly, controlled, precise. The darkness inside swallowed any light. For a moment, just silence, no sound, no movement. Then they moved. 2 shadows, standing still, hidden in the van's darkness, waiting. I couldn't see faces, just human shapes. The way they were positioned close to the opening, ready to act. Fear locked me in place for a second, but Marlon reacted. His arm yanked me back. Run. Now. Adrenaline burned through me. My body hesitated to obey. My legs felt heavy, slow. But then we ran. The restaurant was still full, people laughing, glasses clinking, completely unaware of the horror just feet away. We pushed the door open hard. The hostess stepped back, startled. Call security. Now, Marlon practically yelled. The staff looked at each other, confused. The nearest waiter pulled out his phone. By then, my chest was heaving. Fear coiled tight in my throat. My eyes searched the parking lot. The van was leaving. Slowly, as if there was no hurry, as if they had already calculated every possibility. Security arrived, but it was too late. No trace. No cameras in that part of the parking lot, just an open door and 2 waiting shadows. It almost happened. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the darkness inside the van. The figures. The door sliding open. The next morning, I opened Google, and my blood ran cold. There were multiple horror stories on the news sites, 2, 3, 5 victims. All women, all alone. The detail that chilled me the most? They all described the same thing. A white van, a side door opening slowly, shadows waiting. What if I had been alone that night? What if I had ignored my instinct? What if we had taken just 2 more steps? Now, whenever I see a van or a larger car, I don't go near it. It doesn't matter if I have to cross the entire parking lot. It doesn't matter if someone calls me paranoid. I'd rather seem paranoid than become just another name on the list, because sometimes the door is already open before you even realize you're in danger, and sometimes you don't have time to run. The sound of the lock clicking open echoed through the empty street. Click. Too quiet for anyone to notice. But I noticed, and that's when I understood. We hadn't gotten into the car yet, but it had already unlocked for us. The city was still pulsing that hot, haunting night in Austin, Texas. Not like a few hours earlier when the bars were packed and the streets filled with laughter and music. Now it was that strange time between night and dawn, when the drunks have gone home and the workers haven't left yet. Especially in the more isolated neighborhoods where everything shifts and the place turns empty and eerie. Isabella, my girlfriend, and I were leaning against a lamppost waiting for our Uber. We had spent the night celebrating her friend's birthday, good music, too many drinks, easy laughter. the kind of night that makes you lose track of time. The app showed our ride was 2 minutes away. That's when it pulled up. A black Honda, same model as the app. The license plate looked close enough to go unnoticed. I didn't check twice. I just saw the window roll down and heard the driver's raspy voice. "Uber for David?" I nodded, took a step forward. Isabella hesitated. "He didn't confirm your name," she whispered. My stomach tightened, but I brushed it off. Maybe he was just tired or not the talkative type. But then I noticed the details. No company identification on the window, no phone on the dashboard running GPS, and the way he was watching us through the rearview mirror, it wasn't casual. It was like he was waiting for something, like he was ready. A wave of unease crawled up my chest. I checked my phone. Our Uber was still 2 minutes away. Cold crept up my spine. "Hey man, are you sure you're here for us?" The guy didn't blink, didn't smile, just nodded. Once, my body screamed, "Run." But before I could react, Isabella gripped my hand tightly. "David, that's not our car." Tension coiled in my muscles. The air felt heavier. The Honda unlocked its doors. The click rang out like a gunshot in my chest. Isabella took a step back. "We'll just order another," I murmured, trying to sound casual. The driver finally spoke. "Get in. I'll take you." His voice emotionless, empty, terrifying. My heart slammed against my throat. I looked around. The street was eerily deserted. No cars, no people close enough to notice if something was off. "We already called another, thanks." I forced a relaxed tone. He didn't reply, but I could tell he didn't like that answer. We stood there, frozen, waiting for him to leave. He didn't. The engine purred, patient. His hand slipped off the wheel. I could already see what would happen next. The car lunging forward the moment we turned our backs, doors swinging open, hands yanking us inside. But then, headlights. Another car turned onto the street, illuminating everything. Our real Uber. The Honda peeled off. So fast, so immediate, like he had already planned his escape if things didn't go his way. We stood there, lungs locked in terror. The real driver rolled down his window. "You're David and Isabella?" This time, we made sure before getting in. We got home safe, or at least that's what I thought. Early the next morning, Isabella called me. Her voice was shaking. "David, I think he was here." Ice ran through my veins. "What?" "A black Honda, parked on my street. When I looked again, it was gone." He knew where she lived. I grabbed my keys. "I'm coming over." By the time I got there, the street looked normal, like nothing had ever happened. But we knew. We don't know what he wanted, but we know it wasn't just a ride. Now every time a car stops near me, I check the plate 3 times, and if the driver takes too long to say my name, I don't get in. But the worst part is knowing Isabella isn't safe. He could come back at any moment. Valentine's Day in Dallas meant crowded restaurants, overpriced glasses of wine, and couples pretending they still felt something for each other. I was never a fan of the holiday, maybe because my parents always fought over everything. But Nathan wanted to do something special. The Belmont Bistro was a small, elegant restaurant, the kind with soft jazz playing in the background, and waiters speaking softly, as if each meal were a sacred ritual. Dim lighting, flickering candles on the tables. I admit it was beautiful. The dinner was better than I expected. We laughed, we drank. For a moment, everything felt normal, until I went to the bathroom. The hallway leading there was narrow and quiet, isolated from the main dining area. The lights were dim, casting elongated shadows on the walls. I pushed open the heavy door and stepped inside. The bathroom was immaculate. White marble, gold faucets, a scent of lavender. There were 3 stalls, all empty. And then I saw the mirror. Huge, floor to ceiling, directly across from the stalls. Its dark frame gave it an antique air, like it belonged to a mansion from the last century. Something about it didn't seem right. The lighting there felt off, like the reflection was darker than it should be, as if there was a strange depth, something beyond the glass. I approached. I fixed my hair, ran my fingers across the smooth surface. Without thinking, I tapped lightly on the mirror. Just a touch, and it responded. A low sound, mute, exactly in the same rhythm. My body froze. It wasn't an echo. It wasn't a delayed sound. It was a response. I turned abruptly, my heart hammering in my chest. No one. The stalls were still empty. The silence grew heavy. Every inch of my skin prickled. I turned back to the mirror. My own image stared back at me, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. But I wasn't alone. I rushed out of the bathroom. When I sat back down at the table, Nathan looked at me strangely. Are you okay? I opened my mouth but paused. How could I say this without sounding crazy? I think someone is behind the bathroom mirror watching people. There's something strange about that mirror. Nathan furrowed his brow. Strange how? I swallowed hard. I tapped on it. Something tapped back. He blinked. Like an echo? I shook my head. No, like someone was on the other side. He sighed and stood up. Come on, I want to see this. I didn't want to go back, but I did. The bathroom was still silent. The mirror was still there, its dark frame looking more suffocating now. Go ahead, Nathan said. Tap on it. I hesitated, then raised my hand and pressed my knuckles against the glass. Silence. Nathan shot me a look of, I told you so. But I knew what I had heard. My stomach twisted with anxiety. Then something happened. The door next to the mirror opened. It was small, almost invisible, hidden in the corner of the bathroom. A manager wearing a suit and thin glasses stepped in. Is there a problem? His voice was polite, but his face was tense. My heart raced. Behind the mirror, what's there? He blinked. Nothing. Just a wall. Can you show us? He hesitated, but then he sighed and led us down the corridor. Behind the door was a narrow, dark space, so tight that only one person could fit. The walls were old, with exposed pipes, and then I saw it. A hole in the drywall, small, right at eye level, directly behind the mirror. Air rushed out of my lungs. Nathan cursed. The manager looked uncomfortable. This shouldn't be here. But it was, and someone had been there before. Someone had looked through that hole. Maybe that night. Maybe for months. I never went back to the Belmont. But now, every time I enter a public bathroom, I avoid large mirrors. Because some of them aren't just mirrors, they're windows. And sometimes someone is watching. I could never forget that damn night of terror in July 2022. I wasn't the type to go on blind dates, especially since I had suffered from psychological trauma since childhood. But Megan, my best friend since we were kids, insisted so much that I finally gave in. He's perfect for you, Claire. Funny, smart, handsome, and not a psychopath, I swear. So there I was at Rosendale's, a charming bistro in downtown Denver, waiting for a guy named Eric whom I had never seen before. The restaurant was packed, couples holding wine glasses, waiters gliding between tables with steaming plates. A soft ambient melody played in the background. I checked my phone. 8:05. Eric was late. That's when I noticed him. A man sitting alone at the corner table, watching me. He didn't even try to hide it. He didn't look away. Dark. His pale skin dimly lit by the weak lighting, deep-set eyes as if he hadn't blinked in a long time. I turned my face away, uneasy. Maybe he was just waiting for someone. Then a waiter passed by. The man had no glass on his table, no plate, nothing, just sitting there, looking. My discomfort grew. I forced myself to ignore him and checked my phone again. 8:10. No message from Eric. Claire? I looked up. The man from the corner table was now standing in front of me. My heart skipped a beat. I'm Eric. His voice was too low, almost a whisper. For a moment, my mind rejected the information. It couldn't be him. Megan said Eric was charismatic, sociable. This man, he felt wrong. I sat there, stunned, as he pulled out the chair and settled in across from me. The waiter came to take our order. Just water for me, Eric said. I could barely swallow. Something about him unsettled me. Maybe it was the way he spoke, always too slow, as if carefully selecting every word. Maybe it was the fact that he didn't move a single muscle except for his lips, or maybe it was the simplest detail of all. He didn't blink. I tried to keep the conversation light. I asked his job. I'm a consultant. Of what? He smiled. A slow smile. Calculated. Various things. Cold. Mechanical. My skin crawled. I checked my phone again, desperate for a reason to leave. Nothing from Megan. No messages. You seem uncomfortable, he remarked, tilting his head. No, I just didn't expect you to already be here waiting for me. He was silent for a moment, far too long. I wasn't. A cold shiver ran down my spine. What do you mean? He leaned forward slightly. I got here after you. I saw you sitting here, and I decided I wanted to be Eric. Horror settled over me. He wasn't him. He wasn't Eric. How was this possible? Was someone watching me? At home? At work? The real Eric never arrived, never sent a message, and I was sitting there having dinner with a complete stranger who had decided to be my date. My hands trembled. I stood up, forcing a smile. I just need to use the restroom real quick. Don't take too long. The way he said it, like I didn't have a choice. I ran into the bathroom and locked the stall door. My heart pounded violently in my chest. I grabbed my phone and dialed Megan. She picked up on the third ring. Claire, how's the date going? My throat went dry. Are you sure you gave me the right restaurant? She hesitated. Rosendale's. Why? Because Eric isn't here. What? He texted me earlier saying he was leaving his house. My vision blurred. Then, who am I having dinner with? Megan fell silent. And then, from somewhere in the restaurant, I heard a phone vibrate. My blood turned to ice. I cracked the stall door open and peeked out. On the sink, a phone lay face up. The screen lit up. Caller ID Megan. It was his phone. He knew I would call. The bathroom became too quiet. Then, the mirror caught a movement behind me. The door was locked, but he was in there with me. What happened next? I don't remember clearly. I only remember the bathroom door being kicked open by a waiter. I remember someone pulling me out, my mind dazed with absolute terror. But when they looked back, the stall was empty. No sign of him. No sign of the phone. Nothing. That wasn't possible. And yet the bruises on my wrists, my injured face, how could he have never been there? But he was. I know he was. I'm not crazy. Megan doesn't believe me. No one does. They think my mind is playing tricks on me. I have a reputation. But what truly terrifies me is knowing that he's still out there. Somewhere I never want to go on another date again. Megan has kept her distance since that day. I don't care. My life is a mess. Maybe I really am going insane. Or maybe I always have been. Maybe you've experienced something like this. Maybe you felt that eerie sensation of someone following you. If you've been through it, share in the comments. And if you've never felt it, I just hope it stays that way. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.